Nancy Woodin, and I have a bunch of my own pieces to play for you today, and they are very, very short. So if you clap for every one of them, we'll be here all day. So maybe just give a few claps and then I'll move on to the next. And if you don't like one, don't worry, there's lots of styles, there's something for everyone here. Most of my music is inspired by my piano students, my family, and trips that we've taken. And we had a wonderful family vacation to Alaska a number of years ago, and we got to be some of the 1% of people to see the very top of Denali Mountain, or Mount McKinley, if you remember that way, way back. And that's really a cool thing. We were so excited to see. It was a perfect day. This is Grand Mountain. Next is Rainbows, and this is about sundogs, actually. I had a student who came to her piano lesson very excited one day because she saw sundogs. I didn't know what that was. So she said it's the little rainbows that come out the sides of a cloud. So I called it Sundogs, sent it to the publisher, and the publisher said, I'm not gonna call it Sundogs, make it something else. So this is Rainbows. Next is Soaring Above, and this one is for my Aunt Dorothy, who soared above everything that came her way during her life.
Great.
Thank you. Next are some arrangements of very old tunes that I have. And the first one is written for my mother-in-law, Marilyn. This is Faithfulness. Is one that I wrote for my brother. This is called Onward, and you need to listen in the middle for the trombones. Friendship, and this one is in memory of a longtime friend of the Woodin family. first one is called On the Lake, and it is a celebration of the 5 Great Lakes. And because of its 5, there are 5 black keys on the piano, so everything is played on the black keys. On the Lake. Is one that has a French title, and this is L'après-midi au mer. Translated is Afternoon at Sea. Mirror Lake was inspired by images of Mirror Lake in Alaska. And Mirror Lake is so still that the image that is in the water is exactly the same as the image on land. And you can't tell the difference between them. So in this piece, I have the hands mirroring each other. Mirror Lake. arrangement of a piece, and this is called Visions, and this one was written for my father-in-law, John. Arrangement that I have, and this one is so new that you get to be the first audience to hear it. This is The Garden, written for my brother Norm. And now, Pirates. In my studio, my students couldn't get enough Pirates music. They loved to play it, and so we ran out and I had to write some. So there are 3 pieces here. The first is called Seaworthy, and this was written for my dad, who loved ships. Everything ships, even pirate ships. You bet. The next one is Pirates of Dragon's Mouth Cove. This one was written for our sons, Rob and Mike. Have a sequel. This is The Pirates of Dragon's Mouth Cove Find Sunken Treasure. Inspired by the 1950s and 1960s. This is Cruisin' in a Red IROC. I know, IROCs weren't invented until 1984, but this is, an IROC is I-R-O-C. Anybody know what that is? International Race of Champions. And they were special cars that were the cars that were first in the race. So this is Cruisin' in a Red IROC. It was inspired by a student who actually hitched a ride in a hot IROC to her piano lesson. Next is Rock Baby Rock, written for our older son, Rob. We go to the West End for West End Hideout. it's inspired by a line from the musical The Music Man, where Harold Hill has swindled all these parents out of money, and he's taken all that money and he's going to get it out of town. And he's got his exit timed down to the last wave of the brakeman's hand on the last train out of town. My family has performed that musical a number of times. We're from Iowa, and that was written in Iowa. My husband John has performed the title role of Harold Hill, and this guy's dad, when he was 8, got to perform the role of Winthrop, the little boy in the show. So here's the last train out of town. Now, you might know that Harold Hill didn't make it out of town on that last one in the show because he falls in love with the librarian.
Yeah, librarian.
Of course. The last one in this series is called Oh, 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 Angel, and it is more of a blues piece. And this was written for Kim, who was a piano student, who grew up, got married, and her child, her girl, is named Angel. Next, we're going to do 3 pieces that are completely different from that. And the first one is about stars, and then wind, and then fire. Stars is Follow the Star.
Listen to the Wind. This one was written after the tragic loss of a student who actually killed herself. And this was written to hopefully help her family grieve just a little bit. This is Listen to the Wind. The Fire. A Mother's Love is the next piece, and this one is autobiographical for my mom and myself. And this goes from my birth through my growing up years and those very fiery teenage years, and then from the birth of my own children, and then when the roles switched and I became her caretaker. next three pieces are just for fun. The first one is Emergency Team, and this was written for my very favorite EMT, my brother Ron. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next is Funny Business, and this one was inspired by a gentleman named Rob McCain, my favorite funny man, and his alter ego, Duder the Clown. This one is a ragtime piece called Rad Rag. A musical book, and this book is about our two dogs, and it's patterned after a special notebook that Johann Sebastian Bark wrote many years ago called the Notebook for Anna Magdalena Bach. And he wrote this for his second wife, Anna Magdalena, gave it to her for her 25th birthday. This book is called The Notebook for Johann Sebastian Bark. And this is one where we're going to ask you to not clap until the very end. And this is going to be narrated by my husband.
Once upon a time, there was a dog named Johann Sebastian Bark, and he belonged to two musicians, John and Nancy Woodin. Can you guess their favorite composer? Well, Bach. Johann was a small, black, hairy dog whose breed is called a Lhasa Apso, although he really looked like a black dust mop without a handle. One day, strains of a Bach concerto streamed from our stereo. At the end, the announcer came on and said, and that was by Johann Sebastian Bach. At the word Johann, the dog jerked his head up and looked around as if to say, hey, who said that?
This piece is Homage to Johann, and it's based on the Minuet in G. You may have heard or played when you were a kid, only this is a little updated.
Around the yard, snow flying in all directions. When he heard his name called, he would look up from the snow, and his face was covered in white. Pretty hilarious sight. The temperature never bothered Johann. 40 above or 40 degrees below zero, Johann loved the snow. Johann was always ready to wow any audience with the Johann Show. His repertoire of tricks. He loved to perform for Nancy's piano students or my voice students, or anybody else that would drop in. In fact, Johann would perform for anyone. He just did it for his favorite treats, M&M's candies. These are half gone. By the way, the only word that Johann could say was please. You could ask him to say purple or cookie or banana, but the only word that he would say with a friendly woof was please. Can you beg? Lie down. Stay. Johann, come. Roll over. Play dead. Walk on your hind legs, Johann. Johann, dance. Lift your nose. Is that a cat? Get that cat. Good dog. Johann hated cats. One of his tricks was to bark ferociously upon hearing Johann, is that a cat? Get that cat. He would run to each door and window in the house, barking so fiercely that any cat would turn and run. Dog in a production of the musical Carnival. He was on stage one night, kind of by accident. He had auditioned for the part, and he didn't make it. Was so disappointed. I trained him to walk on his hind legs just for the show. But the dog who was picked for the part became ill, and Johann got to become a star. He had another performance from a library circus and earned him rave reviews and the honorary title of the Circus Dog. It was a sad day in June when Johann died. He'd been sick, and he just couldn't get well. Nancy and I and our boys, Rob and Michael, said a tearful goodbye. What a great dog. But a new puppy was promised that August. A cute little fuzzy Lhasa Apso puppy now came to the Woodin house. Her name, well, a musical name, of course, in honor of Johann Sebastian Bach's second wife. The new puppy was dubbed Anna Magdalena Bark, or just Maggie for short.
Thank you for
You're
staying
welcome.
for the whole thing. That's awesome. Thanks.
Do you know anything from the Old West?
Anything from the Old West? No? Sorry.
Well, it was beautiful. The whole thing was perfect.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Greg.